Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and it's time for part 2 of the Q&As, so let's go ahead and knock this out. Alright, first question. Your opinion on the validity of increasing volume via tonnage with the same weight versus increasing weight on the bar with lower reps. For example, week 1 you squat 3 by 8 at 405 for 24 total reps, and week 2 5 by 6 for 405 for 30 total reps, versus week 1 3 by 8 at 405, and week 2 3 by 6 at 420, all in the context of work capacity. Wow, what a complex, convoluted question. All right, brother, can more tonnage, the way you're discussing, improve gains? Yes, of course. And what I would say is that ideally, in an ideal world, you would get stronger on every single workout, or at least week to week, month to month. The long-term goal or any adaptation is progressive overload through any means possible. You're going to get the most strength and therefore the most long-term potential muscle gains by adding more weight to the bar. But realistically speaking, that only works for novices, right? Because if we could add weight to the bar continually, we would all be squatting 800 pounds. We would all be squatting 1,000 pounds. We would all be bench pressing 600-700 pounds, right? Everybody would. But that doesn't work that way. That only works for novices. It works for noobs. For everyone else, we have to find other ways to adapt. Or if we use linear progression like that, it has to be very, very, very slow. And there's still going to be some undulation. So essentially what you're talking about is trying to devise your own form of periodization. And it may not be necessary for you to do that. If you want to understand how different periodization theories work, there are already books written on training periodization that have been written based upon the findings of coaches and experts and PhDs working with athletes all over the world. You just need to read some books on basic periodization so that you can understand how to rotate through these tonnages and rep ranges and protocols if you want to write your own programs. And if you don't want to write your own programs, then just go run one written by a coach already that will break all this down for you. But do you need to increase tonnage over time in order to be able to add more weight to the bar? Yes, absolutely. You will probably need to do so. There are exceptions. There are certain training protocols that will allow you to bypass that, but they are not the easiest ways to train. They're most certainly not the easiest ways to train. Usually the easiest way to go about it for most people, particularly people with more limited time, is to use some sort of periodization like that. And the whole point is that you do increase tonnage over time in between periods of being able to increase weight on the bar so that you can gain more muscle, gain more strength, so that you can, again, add more weight to the bar to repeat the process. All right, next question. Seeing the bench press form at the NFL Combine, he's got form in quotations, it's no wonder people lift so terrible. How can they use this as an assessment of strength, or is it all for show to ensure the viewer sees athletes hitting high numbers? Well, what you're looking at as far as that goes, because, yeah, I know what you're talking about is pretty bad sometimes. But what you are looking at is these athletes basically getting as many reps as possible with 225 or, 100 kilos and some change on a kilo for the purposes of judging a proxy for upper body strength. Strength and conditioning coaches who look at what these guys are doing at the Combine, they all agree this actually is a valid assessment of upper body strength and performance. Even though, yeah, it's not going to be considered usually legitimate form, it still gives us a comparison between individuals because they're all choosing to use terrible form and get the weight up any way possible. They're all using the exact same weight. We still have a measure of performance, and that's how many reps they can end up doing with it using the same terrible, horrific form. Yeah, I know. Is there a higher risk of injury? Yeah, if they were using a heavy weight, it would be. But because they're using 225, and most of these guys are serious athletes, that is a very, very light weight, they're probably not going to get hurt doing this Combine test. And therein lies the difference. That's why they elected to do it with a lightweight for reps is because they know these guys, because they're competing and you're not going to do it like powerlifting where they force strict form. They don't want to test their max, right? Because if they do their 1 rep maxes or really heavyweights the way they try to cheat it up, they're going to get hurt. So they realize real quickly, if we just do it this way, we can still get a proxy for overall performance from athlete to athlete. Because at the end of the day, a person who can do 20 reps with the same weight is stronger than a person who can do 15. So if you really want to know someone's max, that actually is valid. Like if they were to both go train for a max later, the guy who can do 20 reps, if they spend just a little bit of time working on maxes, would most likely have a considerably higher 1 rep max than the guy who does 15 reps. So it's still considered to be a valid proxy for upper body strength for judging an athlete. Although, yeah, we could look at that form and say, oh my God, how can we compare this to anyone? It only ends up being comparable because it's to exhaustion with questionable form. Since their form all breaks down near the end no matter what, we still get an idea of overall work capacity and work strength potential of their upper body. All right, next question. Hey, coach. I think you mentioned you were building or planning to build your own home gym again. Would you make videos taking us through the process and your choices? I think it would be very informative. Thanks. Yeah, brother, that's going to be a little ways out. I've got a lot of other stuff I have to get done before I can get around to doing that. There's going to be a lot involved. I'm not going to go into what all I need to do to get there. But yeah, I will absolutely do that. That is going to be a long-term goal. Having a garage that I own, that I'm not worried about cracking the floors or anything, that I can build a home gym in. Again, that's going to be on my to-do list. What would I consider? Probably almost all Rogue. The reason I say that is that terms of quality of equipment that can take abuse for the money, Rogue seems to really strike a good value. Yes, there are cheaper companies. They're considered to be affordable, but they're not cheap. And therein lies the difference. Their quality, though, everything seems to be really, really well constructed. So what would I consider to be the bare minimums? Power rack or a half rack, like a squat rack. Hopefully with a weighted chin-up bar on it, weighted dip bar. Maybe a glute ham raise and a rubber Olympic lifting, deadlifting platform. Bunch of their rubberized plates, because those are actually safe to drop on that platform. They can be used, say, for Olympic lifting, and probably a couple bars. That would be my baseline. Eventually get a bench I could stick in the power rack. Yeah, that's basically what a person would need. That's where I would start for me personally. That's what I would do. Then get some GPP stuff. Get a prowler. Get some farmer's carry handles. And, you know, at least 600 pounds in plates, right? Basically have enough plates to do whatever I want to get my max deadlift up to on a bar. So, you know, again, if I want to get my deadlift up to 650, I probably need to have 650 pounds of plates. And that's the beauty of that. You only need enough plates to accommodate your potential max deadlift. Even gym lifts, you know, because again, if you only have 600 pounds in plates and you build up to doing that for 2 or 3 or 5 reps, you're obviously going to pull more than that in competition at that point. So that's kind of what you need, and you can just kind of build from there. But that's what I would do. It looks to me right now that Rogue has the best price on things like bars, quality plates, racks, things like that. And they just have a good assortment of equipment. So that's probably the direction I'm going to go. That's subject to change by the time I get around to it. And just like what I did with the other gym, I'll make videos and show you guys what I'm getting as I go with it so that we can see what I have available. Because yeah, long term, that needs to happen for this channel. Because me to have my own garage training environment to film in again and do all my training and all the kooky stuff I want to do, like all my Bulgarian system and everything else, yeah, being able to film it's going to be important. So yeah, it will be done eventually. I can't give you a time frame though. All right, next question. Hey brother, I used closed grip 1 inch from the smooth for my pressing movements and was wondering if there would be any benefits to adding in additional work with dumbbells instead of simply adding more sets with barbells. Would there be benefits? Yeah, potentially. Change things up, some variety, some exercise variation if that's what you so choose. I don't think dumbbells are necessary personally because I don't think the additional stretch reflex is that big of a deal in the chest. I don't think chest is that difficult to build unless you are trying specifically to bodybuild. And current bodybuilding, they want pectorals to be disproportionately large, although ironically they all send their triceps up also, so who knows, maybe they should just be doing more presses and dips. But again, if you maybe want more stretch reflex because your pectorals are lagging, I can see that being an issue. But outside of that, I think for the most part it's there just to add variation, just to get through some staleness. I don't think dumbbells are necessary for maximum pressing strength, maximum chest and tricep development. I don't think they're necessary. I've met plenty of guys in my life with 400 plus pound bench presses who don't touch dumbbells, who have massive pecs and massive triceps. I think bench press, floor press, overhead pressing, weighted dips gives you everything you need. And the weighted dips are there just for variety, so that's something you could always add in instead if you need some variation for injury prevention, staleness, things like that. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time in part 3.